Joining us now from ETSU, please welcome Dr. Gregory Aloia.
Pleasure to be here this morning, an opportunity to share with you my 40 plus years of experience in higher education in a variety of leadership roles. I want to start by saying my view of leadership starts off with the concept that leadership is a journey, not a destination. It's a day-to-day effort to continue to move towards the goals you've set. And I learned early on that the only thing done by Fiat is an Italian car. So this is a journey, not a destination. In preparing for my remarks, I realized that I went back and looked at the number of jobs I've had since I finished my doctorate, and it's hard to believe that this is my 10th job. When I told my wife that, she said, yes, she's been counting, and she says, either you are very, very talented or you just can't keep a job. So what I did is I looked at those 10 jobs and which ones had experiences that were the most salient that I could bring to this discussion today about transformational leadership. What are the experiences I had? So I've selected 3 schools. So University A, when I approached it in a leadership position, I asked lots of questions, but the question I asked was, how many veterans you have on campus? And nobody knew. They had no idea who they were, what they were, or what they were doing. University B, the second school I went to, that I learned these lessons from, they were facing 3 challenges. The first challenge they were facing was a decline in enrollment, 13% in the last 3 years. They also had increasing costs to go to school. The cost of college is getting more and more expensive, and they had never been recognized in U.S. News and World Report as a 4-year institution. And the third school is a personal one, and that was my alma mater. When I graduated from high school, I had an older brother who was the first in the family to go to college, and he was a biochemistry major, straight A, the model older brother, and all I wanted to do was play football. That's it. I didn't have a major. I just wanted to play football. So in my brilliance, I picked a school, my brother's college, and I went there and found out they didn't have a football team. Not off to a good start, am I? So it was St. Mary's College, and one evening early in my first year there, I bumped into Brother Albert, the retired president. I said, Brother Albert, I said, what would it take to start a football team here? And he said, Mr. Aloha, he never got my name right. He said, it would require the signature of the Pope. And I said, great, how do I write the Vatican? And then he chuckled. He was saying his office outside the chapel, and he goes, I meant Pope John the 23rd, who'd been dead for 2 years. So those are the experiences. So having had that many jobs, I'm pretty skilled at starting jobs. So how do I start a job? There are a lot of things I do, but the 3 most important things I've done that work very, very well, you start with looking for a leadership team. And I won't go into details, it's a whole workshop in itself, but I look for members of a leadership team that have 3 core attributes. There are 8 characteristics, which is another workshop in itself, but the 3 core attributes I look for, I want people who are principled to the core, who have a set of values they live by. Very important for leadership. The second, I look for passion. I want you passionate about what you're doing. Whether you're a professor, whether you're an assistant, whether you're a director, whether you're a coordinator, whether you're a secretary, are you passionate about what you do? I love passion. A lot of things get done with passion. And the third attribute, are you persistent? I'm not one much for motivational speeches or motivation, because when you're motivated, you get a lot of things done. When you're not motivated, you don't get very much done. But persistent never fails. Give me someone who's principled, give me someone who's passionate, and someone who's persistent, and I can start building a great leadership team. And I've been very fortunate. The second thing I try to do is to begin to build a culture of how I'd like this team to operate if I'm going to be a part of this team. And I learned a lot of lessons from my parents, but my dad in particular. My dad was an interesting man. He worked in a factory. He was a craftsman, a very skilled craftsman. That was his job. My dad's passion was he was an illegal bookie. He was a bookmaker. He'd been doing it since he was 13. Now, you go up in a house with your dad's a bookie, you learn a lot of lessons. You don't realize you're learning them when you do. I didn't realize that I was the only kid in the 3rd grade that had experienced a trifecta. When everybody else in the 3rd grade was cheering for Willie Mays, that dates me, we were cheering for Willie Shoemaker, the jockey. But I did learn from my dad some lessons. He said, if you want advice, you ask a bookie and you get what you pay for. But if you want to be successful, and I was one of 7 kids, he said, surround yourself with people more intelligent than you. He also looked at me and said, that'll be very easy for you, Greg. And it has been. I have always been fortunate enough to have people more intelligent than me on the leadership teams I've worked on. He said, when you get those folks, he said, treat them kindly, be nice to them, and when you have a problem, give them time to think about it, and you'll get some pretty good answers, and you won't look so stupid. And it works. So I've polished that off, my dad's counsel over the years, into 4 letters, CCRC, Civil, Candid, Reflective, Counsel. I have a great leadership team. They're civil in their discourse, candid in their counsel, and reflective when they give their best advice. It works. And then I try to set the framework with this principal group, and we commit to the following rights. The right thing, the right way, for the right reason, with the right outcome. And we might be able to call ourselves a righteous team. I don't want to get too biblical, but are we doing the right thing? So those are 3 frameworks. And then I take 5 structures, every organization has them, and I ask, how are we doing? Again, journey, not a destination. None of these things are ever finalized. It's like a gym membership. You don't just buy a gym membership and then get the Olympic team. You work at it every single day. What are the 5 things? First is goals. What are the goals of your organization? Can you express those goals concisely with enthusiasm and passion? My poster child is FedEx. 3 words: people, service, profits. And they say it with passion. People first, quality service, profits will follow. Well, I'm dean of the Clemmer College at ETSU, and we just finished our strategic plan. We have an amazing group of faculty, amazing staff, an amazing leadership team, and we're down to 4 words that define who we are. We want to excel in counseling, education, leadership, and sport. Counseling, education, leadership, and sport. And there's a whole story behind each of those. So we have our goals. And where did I learn that? You have to have a passion for your goals. You have to aspire for something above you. I've been a university president twice. I have the opportunity to hire head coaches, probably about 6 head coaches in my time. And I asked the question, last question I always ask in an interview, if you get the job, what are your goals? What are you going to do? Well, there's only one answer, and it better be delivered spontaneously with passion, and it should have at least 3 elements in it, or you're not going to get the job. You know what that is? Well, Dr. Aloha, a lot of them didn't get my name either. I want to win every game. I want to win the national championship, and I want every one of my athletes to graduate. Now, I can work with that kind of coach. Set your goals and aspire to them. Something you can't reach, go for that. Now, every goal that I've seen in any organization, the next question I ask is, what's your structure? How do you build the structure in that organizational culture, in that department, in that college, in that university to make it work? And those are called policies, processes, and procedures. And oftentimes they're overlooked. If they do not relate to your employees and your staff and your team, if they're not efficient, effective, and relevant, they're not perceived as being fair and equitable and just, your infrastructure is not going to work. I was a history major when I finally picked a major, and I learned something from our great country. Our first 2 things that we did in our country is what? Our aspirational goals are called the Declaration of Independence. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What a great set of goals to aim for, to aspire to. We're not going to get there by letting personalities do it. We developed a Constitution. The opening word in the Constitution is what? In order to form a more perfect union. Well, that's a pretty good structure. We've had to modify it 27 times, and it's a work in progress to this day. So what's your Constitution? Is it working for your folks in your culture? What are your customs? Good goals, good customs, you're off to a good start. The third thing I look for is commitment. Show me how you are committed to excellence at every level in the organization. I learned that lesson in college when I was a work-study student. My brother and I got a job in the gym, and our job was to clean 27 showers and toilets every day, 5 days a week. And if they had a basketball game on Saturday. Well, one day, the athletic director saw me, and he said, Mr. Aloha, he never got my name right either. Opens up the door to the men's room, and he says, this is immaculate. I can't believe it. What'd you guys do? I said, well, you told us to clean. He says, this is spotless. I can eat the floor. This is amazing. And that was it. Didn't register till 10 years later. I finished my doctorate. I'm applying for a job, one of the top universities in the country, 250 applicants. I make the final cut. I'm the final 3. And some old professor on the search committee, Dr. Aloha, he didn't get my name right either, he said, "Why should we hire you?" And out of the blue, that story comes back, and I says, "Well, because I'm a really good bathroom cleaner. I can clean your toilet better than anybody you know." And I told him that story, and I got the job. A month into the semester, another old professor sees me and said, "Are you that new guy we hired, the bathroom cleaner?" What I learned from that is, can you excel expectations for the least important thing you're doing and let them know, oh, guess what? If I clean toilets that well, think what I'll do as a scholar, as a professor, and as someone working in your organization. Excel. The 3 things I've talked about, goals, structure, and commitment. The 4th thing is where it really pays off. How do you invest in your employees? How do you support them? And I got 3 P's for that too. Provide, promote, and propel. Do you provide them what they need to do their job? Do you promote what's taking place in your organization? Do you celebrate accomplishments regularly? I always like to ask leaders, can you tell me 5 people in your organization that don't report to you what they do well enough that you can brag about them? And that tells me how organically connected that leader is to that team. There's an entire workshop on provide, promote, but the most important part of that is propel. I was a president. I got a call from one of my foundation board members who was a CEO and retired. He goes, "Dr. Aloia," he finally got my name right. He goes, "You know you got 2 of your vice presidents applying for jobs?" I said, "Yeah, I recommended them. I nominated them. Because both of them have aspired to those jobs. How do I propel your career? You don't just work for me, you work for yourself and your future and your family. What are your dreams?" I always ask the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? And part of my job is providing and promoting and propelling their careers. And part of their job is doing the same with their reports and their reports. So you got those 4 things. You've got your goals, you've got your structure, you've got your commitment, and you really work at those 3 P's. And the last thing is the question, well then how do you know what you're doing and you're doing it well? What are you doing? What's your organization? How do you know you're performing the way you think you are? And my best way of telling it is to tell a story that's my favorite story. One day, St. Peter walks up pearly gates, and there's only 2 people standing there. He says, "Oh, this is going to be a slow day." Goes to the first guy, and he said, "What'd you do?" And he said, "Well, St. Peter, I drove a crazy cab in New York City for 35 years. That's a wild town to drive a cab in." And St. Peter goes, "Whoa, let me check the book." Goes through the good book, and he goes, "Wow, whoa, an amazing job." He says, "Young man," he said, "here's your gold staff, here's a silk robe, and there's your castle for eternity." And the guy goes off singing hallelujah. Well, right behind him, the second guy in line, St. Peter says, "What'd you do?" He says, "Well, I preached the word of the Lord for 35 years. He says, "Reverend, welcome to the pearly gates. Let me check the book." Looked at the book and went, "Whoa, wow. I don't know, Reverend, you just barely made it in. Here's a wooden stick, t-shirt, gym shorts, and that log cabin's yours." And the preacher's perplexed. He goes, "I don't understand." And St. Peter said, "Well, you know, up here, the big guy deals in results." He said, when you preached on Sunday, they slept. When he drove that crazy cab, they prayed to the good Lord. Do you know what you're doing? And how do you know what you're doing? Find out. Be aggressive. Don't have St. Peter tell you. Find out before that. That's accountability. Oh, yeah. Let me wrap up. I think time's almost up. School A. First place I went to. Didn't have any vets. Taking the principles of leadership, taking those 5 components, your goals, your structure, your commitment, your professional development, and your accountability. In our third year, the number 1 most veteran-friendly in America, campus in America. That's leadership delivering. We thanked our vets by making us the number 1 most veteran-friendly campus in America. University 2. Enrollment went from a minus 13% to a plus 22.6%. We led the state in the next 4 years. Number 1 in enrollment for state colleges. The cost of going to college, affordability, we aggressively attacked that through that leadership team, through those 5 structures, through that great leadership team, and we became the 2nd most affordable state college in the country, according to U.S. News and World Report. The 2nd most affordable. The only downside to that story, I found out we were $5 more than the number one. I'd have given every student a $10 voucher and claimed we're the most affordable college in America. But that's the power of committing to those 5 things, building that leadership team, and living it every day. Wow. Brother Albert. I never did. I never did get the signature of the Pope. But 14 months after that conversation, sorry, we finished the season undefeated in our first year. Thank you very much.